Today, in my contribution to the debate, I'm going to be focusing on some topical issues in the tourism industry, providing an overview of the sector and concluding by suggesting a way forward. Mr. Speaker, tourism is doing well. However, there is work to do. We must deepen the opportunities provided by the multi-million-dollar sector and spread the wealth among Jamaicans up and down across this beautiful island of ours. Let us begin with the issue of ensuring that our workers in the sector are provided for in their winter years. Mr. Speaker, the recent passing of the Tourism Pensions Act signals what can possibly be a new day for tourism workers in Jamaica. It can change the fortune of our greatest asset, our people. And for that, I'm happy that the minister has finally brought the bill to its conclusion. But, Mr. Speaker, a seminal moment in this process took place in 2017, when after deep consultation and assessment, I determined that trying to push individual pensions in the tourism industry was futile, and what was needed was a contributory pension scheme. And in this regard, I want to place on record my heartfelt thanks and congratulations to two sets of people. The Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association, who in 2015, the association's leadership and I, as Minister of Tourism, signed a memorandum of understanding. That MOU has borne fruit and led to this watershed moment. And secondly, the Pensions Advisory Council, which I had set up and which was chaired by Daisy Coke. Mr. Speaker, the Council worked with us from 2014 and continued straight through both administrations to the passing of the Act. However, Mr. Speaker, having passed the Act, we have to go further. We have to ensure that all our tourism workers can benefit from this scheme. At present, thousands of workers in the industry operate under the contract employment practice. The excitement in the industry surrounding the passing of the Pensions Act has been tempered by concerns of workers who don't feel they'll be able to participate. You as a member with a lot of tourism workers will find that. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm again urging the Minister to have this matter addressed in the regulations and in a timely manner. We have to ensure that this pension scheme, that the contributions are paid from the employers, whoever they may be. Also, Mr. Speaker, for the scheme to have its full impact, it must expand beyond the accommodation sector to all the workers in the industry. I am calling on the Minister to lead by example by ensuring that for those workers in sector affiliated to government, the Tourism Ministry must pay the employees' contribution and ensure that these workers are vested in the scheme. I am recommending that they start with the RAF captains, which is a point I've made before, and others employed by the Tourism Product Development Company, and send a signal of the government's commitment to this pension scheme. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to the state of emergency. Mr. Speaker, this year, the government implemented a state of emergency in St. James, Hanover, and Westmoreland. While it seems to be suppressing the crime problem in Westmoreland, it is also having a severe negative effect on small businesses. Mr. Speaker, last week, I met with some small entrepreneurs in Negril. The pan chicken man, the shopkeeper, the street vendors, the entertainment sector, the small bars, the corner shops and restaurants, they're all crying out. Mr. Speaker, they have seen a real downturn in their earnings. Week before last, Friday, at 9 o'clock, I drove in to Negril out of a meeting in the constituency. I drove on Norman Manley Boulevard, and when I went there, nothing was open. Everything was closed. There wasn't a pan chicken man, not a drinks, nothing. Everything locked down at 9 o'clock. I had to turn around and drive back into the town to one of the larger establishments to purchase some bottled water. And so the people feel that the business is being transferred from the small businesses to the big businesses. And that unfair treatment is being meted out to them. What makes it worse is that early next month, there'll be Dream Weekend. And venues will be open until all hours of the morning. And it is felt that those who will benefit are the external entrepreneurs. Then once it is over, the place will again be locked down. Mr. Speaker, we need Dream Weekend in Negril. It has done remarkably well for the economy down there. But it is my firm belief that the same treatment given to one must be given to all. Do you see how this looks and why people say that it is only prosperity for a few? The jerk chicken man, the jerk chicken man will not sell off his product by 9 o'clock. He's now told that he has to be off the street by 9. Normally they're coming at 9 o'clock. We eat at 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. So he can't sell off his product by 9 o'clock on a normal night. So what is he to do? The little man has to come off the road, but the big man is allowed his time. We must find a better way that satisfies both the control and or eradication of crime without inflicting irreparable harm to the earning abilities of our citizens. Absolutely. Yeah. As I have said to the leadership of the Constabulary Force and to the political directorate, it cannot be beyond us to find a solution that controls crime but still allows the small man an opportunity. But this requires consultation. In fact, Mr. Speaker, consensus. In fact, Mr. Speaker, just last Saturday night, permission was given for a party in Negril called Painted. The pan chicken man was out till midnight. The small hotels saw increased occupancy and the local economy stirred. And all of this without one incident of crime. Mr. Speaker?
So it was in breach?
No, we had the consultation and had a discussion and it went on. So what we want, no, I don't think you have to change it.
By the minister.
I think it has to do with the curfews that are put on. Mr. Speaker, for the record, when I voted in support of this state of emergency, it was with certain conditions, as this was not my preferred route to crime fighting. I had expressed that a state of emergency cannot be in perpetuity. It cannot just go on forever. We had requested that there must be further consultation with all the stakeholders because crime is not just something that can be dealt with by the government and the police alone. We had asked that there be an examination of the concerns of the business community, especially the small entrepreneurs, which I'm pointing out today has become a reality. Mr. Speaker, we had specifically requested that statistics be provided to the House to enable us to assess the effectiveness of the state of emergency when the time comes for us to review it. We had also asked for the passage of enabling legislation to fight crime such as the DNA Act.
Yes.
And I, Mr. Speaker, I had requested social programs which have been repeatedly promised, but I have still not received one social program external to CDF or our implementation from the government, although over a year ago I was promised from as higher office as the Prime Minister. Mr. Speaker, we are not going to fight this crime solely by hard measures, state of emergency, if you do not put in the social measures. The minute you take off the state of emergency, you're going to return exactly where we came from. Mr. Speaker, the initial 3-month period is well underway, and very few of these issues have been addressed, and I'm sure that the spokesperson will deal with them more fulsomely next week. The Speaker, I want to turn to some projects in Negril. So, Speaker, when the Tourism Enhancement Fund was created, it was created to transform and enhance our tourism product and provide a consistent boost to our marketing activities. During my time in office, we had embarked on a number of transformational projects in all resort areas. We completed the lighting of the Elegant Corridor in Montego Bay, streetscaping in Falmouth, the cruise ship pier in Ocherios, the Sheffield to Negril Road in Negril, as well as the shared pathway in Negril. But, Mr. Speaker, there were a number of projects, particularly in Negril, that had undergone consultation, received approvals, funding had been sought and approved by the Tourism Enhancement Fund, and in some cases, contracts had gone out to tender. Many of these projects have subsequently stalled. These include the Norman Manley Beach Park, the Negril Craft Market, which the Minister in his second month in office visited the craft market and made a commitment to continue with that project to the craft traders, and the lighting of the shared pathway, which has not been completed and about which the police constantly are speaking to myself and the Chamber of Commerce, because a lot of the robberies and hold-ups, knife and so forth are happening on the shared pathway, and we have not been able to get the lighting. Over the last 3 years, meetings have been held, promises made to me, the Negril Chamber of Commerce and others, but to date, no follow-up on these projects that are important to Negril. Mr. Speaker, approximately 25% of all the stopover visitors that come to Jamaica, and consequently the earnings of TF, 25% of the $6 billion that comes in every year, $6 billion, and 25% of those visitors come from Negril. I raise this point because although the Minister has recently asked the Permanent Secretary to take a look at the projects again, we are all impatient in Negril, and there's no provision in this year's budget for any of them. It is interesting, Mr. Speaker, that ground was broken on the beach park in Montego Bay, a project that I had initiated the design phase for, gotten the architects, while at that point, the Negril Beach Park was completed and put out to tender, and ground has been broken on that one, and the Negril Beach Park still languishes. Politics. The only thing I can say is, over to you, Minister Bartlett. You could. Mr. Speaker, I now want to turn to the small and medium sector. Mr. Speaker, the small and medium hotels, the villas, the apartments, a lot of what makes and defines Jamaica and the character of our tourism product in Jamaica are the small and medium hotels. As a matter of fact, if you look at the surveys that we do, a lot of the persons who come here and stay at the villas and the apartments, the ratings are off the charts. You know, they come, get a big villa, have a couple bedrooms, 2, 3 families, the kids there, they have the swimming pool, they go out to eat breakfast in the morning, they move around the countryside. Great ratings. While we continue to get acceptable growth rates in arrivals, this is disproportionate to large properties. Many of our small hotels and villas and apartments continue to struggle. Mr. Speaker, we cannot just focus on growth in visitor arrivals and overall spend. We must also look at the impact of tourism on the local economy. When we speak of the average retention of the tourism dollar being between 30 and 40%, in these smaller properties, it is closer to 80%. They buy in the supermarket and from small farmers. Their visitors walk out into the community, purchase food on the road at the restaurants and corner shops. So we must have an interest in protecting them. Many of these small properties remain vulnerable because a large part of the sector is now vertically integrated. The companies building the hotels now own not just the hotel, but they own the plane that is bringing the tourist, the visitor. They own the travel agency, they're affiliated with the tour operator, and they own the destination management company. They're buying the buses to move them now. These small properties do not have the ability to market in the economies of scale or to bulk buy airline seats as a larger conglomerates can. Mr. Speaker, I am recommending that the government increase its support for this grouping. And there are 2 areas that we can examine to help them with their sales and marketing. I am suggesting that we relook at 1-800-JAMAICA. Remember our telephone line, 1-800-JAMAICA, and the ads that we had overseas, we'd always have at the end 1-800-JAMAICA. It's a very valuable number. We closed it down years ago because at the time, the parent company, Jamaica Reservation Service, was losing money. And we had Air Jamaica Vacations at the time running, and so it was almost competing, performing the same performing the same function. But I believe that bringing back 1-800-JAMAICA, along with a strong online presence, targeting this group, the smaller sector, and twinning with Jamaica Vacations, that's JAMVAC. JAMVAC is our agency that does seat support. So they get about 4 to 6 million US a year, and what they do is the charters that come in, they give them support. These persons could come together, and what they would do is allow our smaller properties to sell online through and pull together packages for them. So, Mr. Speaker, at present, our smaller properties now just have a site online. So they sell on their website or through travel agents and tour operators. This proposal of putting in 1-800-JAMAICA will offer a third option to them, which can help them construct cheaper packages, because with the influence of JAMVAC and JTB, who are out there supporting the airline, supporting the other partners in the industry, they can assist with pulling together bulk rates and allow the smaller properties to now come together and merge and pull together. And it doesn't have to be even the government that has to operate it. They could probably look at getting private sector to get involved in it. At the end of the day, Mr. Speaker, I think these thoughts are worthy of consideration, because this sector is a sector that we must protect if we want the character of our tourism to remain what it is. Mr. Speaker, I now turn to ganja, sensimilla, weed, cannabis. Mr. Speaker, what role should Ganja have with tourism? In 2015, the previous administration decriminalized the use of cannabis in Jamaica. Decriminalized. At that point, we were among the few forward-thinking countries that had taken such a bold move. At that time, we were ahead of the curve. 4 years later, is that still the case? According to recently published statistics, and these statistics were published, and 37,000 acres of ganja is grown in Jamaica. This is something that was put out by the United Nations, 37,000 acres. With its multiple crop cycles, this translates to a production of roughly 66 million pounds of ganja per year. And up to that point, all of this was illegal. Given the estimated value of between 9,000 and 22,000 Jamaican dollars per pound, this equates to an astonishing $1.48 trillion, or approximately 70% of our GDP. Now, when I saw this as a published figure, I can't imagine 70% of GDP. Whatever the fraction of this you want to take as a reality, Mr. Speaker, it is undoubtedly a potentially huge industry that must be developed. Are we missing the boat? Or the flight? Yeah. Well, Mr. Speaker, there are tremendous opportunities in strengthening the linkages between ganja and tourism. I will readily say that this is not for every tourism entity, but there are opportunities for those that are so suited. Already, Mr. Speaker, an interesting thing happened. I was talking to some persons about this, and I said to them, and they said to me, well, you know that what some people, when they talk about Airbnb, to some people Airbnb is air, bed and bed. And they're talking about sesame and bud. So it's not breakfast, but air, bed and bud. So it is imperative, and bud, air, bed and bud. So it is imperative that the Ministry of Tourism formulate a policy framework to define its position on cannabis in the tourism industry, and it must do so quickly because we're missing the boat. Mr. Speaker, what opportunities could this bring? First, it would bring a new retail market for marijuana. Persons in those hotels that so qualified, if they are selling there, it gives you a retail stream. In those properties that would be deemed fit, dispensaries would create a retail outlet for the legal sale of marijuana. This further gives us the opportunity for branding the product, such as, for example, Orange Hill Ganja. You know, they had the festival in Negril, and they brought in all the brands from all countries, and I didn't know if they were going to invite me as a judge, but the fact of the matter is that at the end of the day, Orange Hill Ganja came out as one of the top. So it allows for the branding.
I agree.
This source of funds from the direct retail market can be used by the farmers, for development to ensure that we do not fall behind in the technological commercial world market that is now being developed. One of the problems is persons know Jamaica for ganja. They talk about it. But the truth of the matter is that right now, people are developing it themselves. If you have epilepsy, you have one. If you have a pain in the left shoulder, you have another one. It's becoming very specific. And what has to happen is we need to stay ahead of that curve. And that sort of research and development is going to need dedicated funding. And so one of the areas is if we can get the retail market to give the farmers and the developers some capital. Investors have already indicated that they would join in partnership with the farmers to help finance a resource for this development. Our local farmers would truly benefit. There's also the opportunity for tours. These can be set up for those who want to visit approved farms and would be in addition to the attraction market. Again, your farmers and growers would benefit. There could be a lot of tours given in certain areas of my constituency. So there's already product. There's already product. Not only that, there's also the health and wellness market and all the spa and medicinal offshoots of ganja, marijuana, and there's another unexplored frontier in the industry. There are things being done, but a lot more can be done. The Minister of Tourism announced something about health and wellness market 2.5 years ago, but since then, nothing has happened. To us, all of this seems like a no-brainer to do some of these things, but we haven't seen the action. And on top of that, there are some real challenges. The government, some time ago, gave 2 special zone licenses, one to Accompong and one to Orange Hill for the growing of marijuana. Since then, the Westmoreland Hemp and Ganja Farmers Association, WAGFA, who are the farmers of Orange Hill, have been trying to acquire land, which has been identified, and it's a massive piece of land. The land is owned by the Commissioner of Lands, and despite this, they still cannot get a leasehold. So the land is there, they've been applying, and they still cannot get a leasehold. Meanwhile, investors who have flown down and looked at it are on standby, waiting on the location. I've spoken to the minister with responsibility for industry, agriculture, and fisheries, and he's aware of the situation. But we need to move on it quickly because, again, it's just on standby. Another problem is that the Cannabis Licensing Authority.
The member's time for speaking has expired.
No, man, about 30 minutes.
House leader.
Just put on now.
No, man. So how do you know how long I was speaking?
How you know how long you must start?
You need about 5 minutes. Yeah, man. I'm almost
House leader.
10 minutes, man.
Marlene.
Mr. Speaker, may the Speaker's time be extended sufficiently to allow him to conclude his presentation.
Those in favor? Those in favor? Those against? As of it, Dr. McNeill.
I move for a changing of the guard with regard to the House leader. Very good. Another problem, Mr. Speaker, is that the Cannabis Licensing Authority licenses the properties that apply for the dispensaries, but the role of the Jamaica Tourist Board is uncertain in tourism entities, as they also play a part in the licensing process. The recommendation of the Jamaica Hotel and Tourist Association is that these properties, those properties that want to apply and qualify, should be allowed to go ahead. But there's still an uncertainty about the way forward in the sector. Mr. Speaker, we need the Minister of Tourism and the Ministry of Tourism to outline a formal policy framework to govern cannabis in the tourism sector, including how they intend to or not to act as a catalyst for the Cannabis Society. What is their true position? And secondly, the Ministry of Agriculture and the Commissioner of Lands need to work together with local producers, such as Wykeham, to formalize them and allow us to make the appropriate linkages to facilitate this potentially huge economic contributor and to make it a reality. Mr. Speaker, in closing, our tourism arrivals continue to grow. A major influence in this growth is the number of new hotels that have opened up in the industry. We on this side of the House have played a significant role in making this success a reality as we lay the foundation on which it has been built. The surge in investment started in 2013 and continues to today, and it did not come by chance. It came through strong, positive economic policies that were planned and executed and that placed Jamaica in a positive light and made it attractive to investment. To this end, Mr. Speaker, we must congratulate the then Prime Minister, Portia Simpson-Miller, and the Minister of Finance of the time, Dr. Peter Phillips, who made these changes. Among the changes made was the implementation of the Omnibus, or Fiscal Incentives Act, which has allowed, and many outside of the sector do not see the influence of this, but it allows the older, smaller properties in the industry to get incentives so they can refurbish. So what has happened is before you had the Hotels Incentives Act, it was just the big and the newer hotels that would get it. But now, the old and the smaller hotels, so what you have is that this part of the sector has been able to refurbish for the first time at last. We have also seen the increase in the retention of tourism earnings. The minister came and spoke about it, moving from 30 to a reported 40 or 42%. This is commendable, and I want to congratulate the Tourism Linkages Hub, set up in the Ministry of Tourism by me, for the fine work that they continue to do even today. Mr. Speaker, it is important to promote a synergy between the different sectors of our economy and tourism. There's great potential there. We still have a lot of work to do to expand these linkages even further. And as I pointed out today, there are real opportunities for us in the ganja industry. As I indicated earlier, this has been a good year for tourism, and we have finally passed the long-awaited Pensions Act. And while there's still work to be done to make it more effective, we must not lose sight, Mr. Speaker, of the bigger picture that we must address in a meaningful way. That is the condition under which tourism workers operate, especially with regard to the use of the contract system in the industry. We on this side of the House have given our commitment to address this issue as a matter of priority. Mr. Speaker, we must ensure that our employees in the sector are empowered. We have to ensure that our craft traders, our taxi operators, the ordinary person who makes a living from tourism feels that it is an inclusive industry and that he has an opportunity there. They want to be a part of the success story too. We must recognize that our industry cannot thrive without virtually every Jamaican feeling that they have a vested interest in it. Strong numbers and indicators mean very little if the ordinary Jamaican is not feeling the gains.
Here, here.
Right now, it is largely pains for them, not gains. We have a good thing going. Let us not become complacent. Now is the time to step it up a few notches. Let us spread the opportunities and the wealth. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to thank my colleagues for having indulged me today. Thank you.